I've moved through this world with a mission, in silence and chaos. I've worn the uniform, carried the weight, and crossed borders most people only hear about when things go bad. Now, I move through these same streets with a new mission, to find the best damn coffee on earth and tell the stories no one else will. From the highlands of Colombia to the alley roasters of Tehran, from the back streets of Port-au-Prince to the hills of Vietnam, from the dust of Afghanistan to the shadows of somewhere I can't even name yet. This isn't a travel show. It's not a coffee review. It's an operation. My name is Jay Dorius, ex-Green Beret and founder of Dark Arts Coffee. And this is the Fill Guide. The place most won't go, the beans most don't know, and the dark truth brewed in every cup. This is episode 1 of Dark Arts Coffee. If you don't know what Dark Arts Coffee is, the intro should have told you everything that I'm trying to do. I hope you enjoy this conversation with me and my guests. Like, subscribe. Let's get into the episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Dark Arts Coffee podcast. Today I have Dennis on the show, a family friend, and I just wanted to bring him on and have him tell his story. Vietnam vet. Even though he and I have linked up, I never really heard the entire story. And this is interesting because my father-in-law, he's also a Vietnam era Marine. So I know he's going to enjoy this conversation also. But before we start, that's 3 questions that I typically ask everybody that comes on here. So we'll get those out the way, Dennis, and then we'll go from there. The first one being, I noticed the collection of books back there, Dennis. What was the last book you read and what was it about?
Last book I read was about the Grand Army of the Republic. It was a fraternity association for the Civil War veterans. And I'm writing a book on the Civil War right now. And so that's my background, my research.
Oh, gotcha. And what I'll do, folks, as the person that I'm speaking with name off a book, what I'll do is I'll make sure I put it in the description box also, just in case you guys have any interest in it. You guys can go pick it up and you guys can check it out yourself. And then the next question, Dennis, is, and this one always gets people because the answers that they give is always different. If you had a time machine and can go back in time and change any major event in history, whether that's your personal life, around the world, what would that event be and why would you change that event?
Probably the thing that comes to mind quickly, Jay, is I would probably more seriously question the Vietnam War and getting into the Vietnam War after seeing the results and the loss of almost 60,000 people. I think I'd change that.
Yeah, and the reason why now I have a keen interest in speaking with the Vietnam vets is because as a veteran of the Iraq War, the global war and terrorism war, we are now years later finding out, the reasons why we went in might not be legit, right? So now a lot of veterans from that war are left to question, was it all worth it? Just like I'm sure at the end of your tenure for the Vietnam War, a lot of you guys were feeling the same way. And yes. And what I always go back to is, and at least what helps me sleep at night is, I was there with my brothers to my left and to my right. And that's why I fought as hard as I did, was not necessarily for government and the cause, but for them. And that's helped me out, so hopefully it helps out the other vets watching this also. And then the last question, Dennis, before we jump into this is, the best cup of coffee you've ever had, where were you at? And have you been able to recreate that in the States?
The only cup of coffee I ever had was in Vietnam on coming back from patrol, and it was lousy, and I never drank coffee after that.
Oh, my God. So you don't even drink coffee?
No.
Hey, too bad your son-in-law doesn't feel that way, because I know Mike's a coffee drinker. He told me exactly how he takes his coffee. So thank you for sharing those those answers with me, Dennis. So we'll jump right into this one, man, because I know, again, as a fellow vet, I always love the backstories to how people end up joining the military because because it showcased that we're from all walks of life, and at the end of the day, a common cause brings us together, and oftentimes it's patriotism. So please let us know, Dennis, myself, and the audience, where you from, how was upbringing for you, and what determining factor led to you joining the Marine Corps?
I was born and brought up in the Berkshires. It's northwestern county in Massachusetts. Uh, my dad was a hunter and a fisherman, and so we spent a lot of times outdoors in the woods. Had three brothers. He liked being outdoors and liked reading about the heroes of World War II and patriots and Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. So, when I was a senior in high school, I just wanted to get out and see the world. I got a little rambunctious, my mother would say, and I joined the Marines in February of '65 and went off to boot camp. And I think it was a combination of things, wanting to be on my own. Of course, the Marine Corps has a great marketing department, and you want to be the best you can. And so before I know it, I was at Parris Island, stayed there 2 or 3 months, went on to advanced infantry training at Camp Lejeune. I had a supply billet for a while. And I don't know if you want me to go through my time in the service.
Now, so
Point.
we'll just talk about upbreak, because once we get to the service part, we'll talk about
Okay.
boot camp and all of that stuff. So just upbringing, high school, the type of kid
So
you were in high school, and then etc.
I just sort of a red, white, and blue family. Dad and mom, 4 boys. Did a lot of work outside on cars with dad. Liked to fish and hunt. Spent most of my teenage years in the woods. Went to a Catholic high school and did okay there. I was planning to go to college right out of high school, and it just didn't happen. I got a little rambunctious, and I decided to join the service.
Yeah, and the story that's always common. There's always, high school comes ends, and then it was like, yeah, I was a troublemaker, or hey, I needed discipline, or hey, I needed something else, and that led to joining the military. Now, leading up to that point, did you have any were there any vets in your family from World War One, two, or even the Korean War? Was there a lineage there, or were you the first one?
My dad was in World War II. He never left the U.S., but he served in the Air Force as a mechanic. And then my mother had 5 brothers, and they were all in World War II. So you can imagine, summer picnics, sitting at the picnic table or sitting on the ground listening to Dad and the 5 uncles talk about their experiences. It was formative for me.
Yeah. So at an early age, then, would you say that it was almost, ingrained into you that, this was something that you had to do? Or was it like, I'm hearing these crazy stories and I don't want to go through that myself?
Jay, I think I've always had a patriotic vein. I love my country and I want to support it. And hearing those stories and reading about earlier heroes, that was a lot of my reading I did as a kid, and loving the outdoors, it sort of all worked itself together.
That's awesome. That's an awesome way to look at it. Now, in looking at our current, lay of the land, of course, I know for a fact that you have grandkids. Has any of them ever approached you about military service and military life? And if they did, or if they have, how did you handle that conversation? Because there's a lot going around nowadays of, kids, are not willing to serve. And then some of the
Yes.
GWAT vets are now saying, hey, it's not worth it. Don't go fight for this other countries. But I've never looked at it that way. It's always been, this country's done so much for me, and this country's still better than some of the places that I've been, and it's worth defending. How do you typically handle that? Those
I'm
those
talking
those
to a
conversations.
grandson right now, and he's sort of struggling to find out what to do after high school. And he met with a Marine Corps recruiter, and I'm just encouraging him to. It doesn't have to be the Marines, but you can get in the Air Force. You can find a trade. So I'm talking it up with him because I think his other alternatives aren't that great,
Hmm.
and I really think the service would help him or help anybody looking for a trade.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have that grandson go to Green Beret Chronicles because right now what I do specifically myself and a couple other guys, I do a lot of coach, teach, mentor, young men that are trying to figure out what to do with their lives. Because I know at one point in time, I was that young man
Yes,
and I didn't have, social media or I didn't have access to mentors that's been there, that's done it. I didn't have, a grandfather that was in the military because I'm from Haiti, so I didn't have any of that. So I just kind of had to stumble and figure it out, right? So, but now there's a lot of different opportunities and there's a lot of different resources out there for anybody, whether it's, and I'm gonna name off a few. We have a group on YouTube called One's Ready. They're the Air Force. They're mainly combat controllers, pararescue men, but they handle the Air Force coaching, teaching, and mentoring side of things for young men and women who wants to join the Air Force. Then you have another channel on the Navy side. His name is Jake Swade. He is a Navy SEAL and he handles everything Navy as far as the special operations side of things. And then, of course, I'm Green Beret Chronicles, and I do everything on the Army side as it relates to special operation, joining the Army, finding which branch is good for you so folks can go check it out. And then on the Marine Corps side, there's a lieutenant colonel out there that does this, and his channel is Ben Pappas. That's his name. So there's a lot of different resources out there for this next generation to showcase to them that, hey, the military has done great things for me and for everyone else that's been in it. It's
great.
no different than working at Walmart or any of these other places. It is what you make of it. As long as you go in with a plan and you know where you're trying to get, what you're trying to get out of it, it should be fine. So hopefully, and I'm sure that young man is in great hands, and you'll do right by him, Dennis. So hopefully he makes the well. I guess whatever decision he makes won't typically be a bad decision, but it will forever. I guess it'll be a decision. So thanks for sharing that with me. Now, you make a decision to join the military. How did that conversation go with your parents and some of your uncles?
The conversation really, to be honest, it really was between my mother and I for the most part. Um, she didn't appreciate some of my high school antics, and the theme back then was, um, I think the Marines would help straighten you out. Like I said, I wanted to get on with life. I, my parents really didn't approve of some of my conduct, and they said, the service might help straighten you out. So mom and I went down and talked to a Marine Corps recruiter, and she told him how enthused I was about joining. I'm not sure I was at the time, and that was the end of the story. About a
So
week
now,
later,
why Marines over the other branches? Is it because you had relatives that served in the Marine Corps,
no,
or
I
what?
never did. I just they maybe I liked the uniform,
The uniform gets everybody.
maybe I liked their marketing. Um, there was never any other choice for me.
Yeah. Now, what year was this?
65.
So was Vietnam going on at the time, or was Vietnam later on?
What Vietnam started, the Marines landed there in March of 65. But in 65, most people in the United States couldn't point out where Vietnam was if they wanted to. And it really didn't start full swing until, you know, they kept building up 66, 67, 68.
Oh,
Uh,
gotcha. So when you went in, then you had no idea that Vietnam was even going to be a thing.
yes, I can remember in boot camp, our drill instructor started talking about Viet Cong. And I can remember him saying, "You're going to be over there pretty soon." And I remember him saying, "What do you feel when you kill a Viet Cong?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. He said 3 pounds of pressure on your trigger pressure. You
Your
know?
trigger finger.
So that's the first, and I still didn't know what they were talking about because it was so fresh in the American mind.
Hmm. Yeah. It's pretty identical to because I went to basic training in 2003 when we invaded Iraq, and I was in basic training going through. I remember the drill sergeants, they used to wake us up in the middle of the night, and they had a bunch of buses lined up outside. And I'm still in basic training. Thought it was just, antics, but some of the other recruits didn't know any better. Middle of the night, they wake us up, toss the room, and do everything that they do, and then they start yelling at us. The buses are outside. They're ready to take you to the airport. Load up, load up. And then guys are crying. They're like, "I need to write a letter to my mom." And we get on the buses, and they drive us around as if we're going to an airport to get on the C-130 to fly to Iraq. And it was just, they would do that over and over again. And finally, guys got the point, like, okay, they're just messing with us. We're not really going to Iraq right now. So I can only imagine you being in basic training and having to deal with some of those antics. Now, did basic training achieve its goal of helping you straighten out? How was your experience there?
But, it was shocking for me coming from a quiet little 15,000 community in a small town in Western Mass. I guess I was shocked. I still remember the first night there, and they keep you busy till 2 or 3 in the morning. And it took me, you just have to adjust. I could remember it was 12 weeks, and I remember it was a struggle early on, but you are so afraid of the drill instructor that you just did what they said. The other thing the Marine Corps had, and they told us all about it, they had a motivation battalion. So if you were in your second or third week of boot camp and you weren't performing, they moved you into motivation platoon, and that we would watch them, move sand with buckets, and how they were treated. They were treated worse than we were, and it just made up my mind. I'm never going there.
You don't want to go to motivation platoon.
when you got out of motivation platoon, you started boot camp over.
Oh, no.
So that helped me get through.
Now, were you down at Paris Island on the East Coast, or did they send you on West Coast?
I was on the Paris Island.
Oh, my. I don't think that place has changed since you were there last.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So now you get done with basic training. How was your family at that point? You graduate, you got the nice looking uniform. Was it proud? Was it worried because you might be going to Vietnam? Like, how was that transitioning
still not a worry.
Yeah.
Vietnam was still not a worry. I went from boot camp. I don't think I had leave. We went right to infantry training at Camp Lejeune, and that was another 4 or 6 weeks. Then after that, I got leave for 2 weeks or so and went home. And of course, I was pretty proud what I accomplished. I hadn't seen anybody, friends, girlfriends, anybody for those, 3 or 4 months. So I was pretty proud of what I accomplished and went home for 2 weeks leave.
So that's, was it 0300? What's the MOS designator for infantry in the Marine Corps?
Supply MOS was 3041.
3041.
That's what they gave me. That was the supply billet they gave me in boot camp.
Gotcha. So now you get done with basic training, you go home, you hang out for a little bit. When did Vietnam start to rear its head, and how did you end up, going over there? Because were you stationed where at?
I went to supply school for like 6 weeks. Then I was stationed in Norfolk. I got married in Norfolk, and then in March of '67, I got orders to what the Marines call Westpac, Western Pacific, was Vietnam, and left in about March of '67, and then it was heating up over there, and stopped in Okinawa for 2 months, help with they sent us to the northern training area. It's a jungle area, and we resupplied some recon units leaving, did some jungle training, and then I went to Vietnam in, I want to say, June of '67. When I got there, I was in a supply billet for about 2 months, and then they changed my MOS to infantry. And I can remember that when that,
You you can't. Hey, you don't just change my. Well, I guess the Marine Corps owns you, so they can do whatever they want with you, huh?
well, they can. I got to I forgot, I had been to Okinawa and I was coming back in country, headed back to the supply area, and this master sergeant stopped me and had a bunch of guys there, and he said, "We're changing your MOS to infantry." And I said, "A top," we call a master sergeant
Your
top,
top. Yep.
and said, "Top, there must be a mistake. I'm an infantryman." And he said, "I'll never forget this. The Marine Corps doesn't make effing mistakes."
Yeah. In
And
the
then
Marine Corps,
I know I
everybody's
was,
a rifleman.
yep, I was a corporal. So the next day, they sent me to a battalion that was guarding the Da Nang Air Base. And I was doing patrols 2 days later. And it was mainly patrolling the outskirts of the air base, setting up small ambushes. Um,
So
and,
at this point, you're a corporal, so you're in charge of men. Um, did you have any kids at that point? Recently married, or
um,
like what's going through your mind as a family man at this point?
Jay, I was so busy. I'm not thinking a lot about home unless it's late at night.
Hmm.
We were most days were like 18 hour. I mean, they were long days. When I was in the supply billet, he said you're going to work. I forgot how he said it. He said you're going to work from 6 at night till 9 in the morning, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's 168 hours in a week. So what you do with the rest of your time, he said that amounts to what's 7 times 15? That's 105 hours.
Hmm.
So he said, what you do with the rest of your time is yours. So didn't think a lot about home, wrote a lot of letters home, but I was so busy when they put me in that battalion. We were on a 3 day rotation. One day was out in the field, um, patrols and ambushes at night. We'd leave at
Yeah.
night often. And then the second day was ripping down base bunkers and filling sandbags. And the third day was in the rear getting training on whatever. Um, so we were pretty busy.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, as a corporal, were you leading other guys, or were you just worried about yourself at this point? Because I know, because in the Marine Corps, shit, as a corporal, you probably have like at least 3 or 4 guys that you're responsible for.
I had a squad. I had a squad of, we probably had 8 guys in the squad, and they were responsible for me. When we first got there, we had M14s, and then we were there during the transition when we went to M16s and had all the problems, with them. But I had about 8 guys. I say a squad. Squad's usually 12,
Hmm.
but I don't remember having that many.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Now I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this particular aspect of things, so if you don't want to, you don't have to. But two separate things. I know for me, the first time I got shot at was very memorable. Do you recall that aspect of your trip, or did you not have to deal with it?
Um, it's funny. It happened. Two things I can recall. I was at the supply billet, and we were guarding the perimeter. And we were just supply guys guarding a perimeter. And I can remember filling up a wooden box full of sand. And I said, it's going to be quiet here. We got wire in front of us. Nobody's going to bother us. And all of a sudden, they just ripped that box apart with bullets. And I said to myself, okay, this is serious stuff here. And it wasn't long, I think it was the same night that we had a further outpost, and I could see 2 short Marines walking along the road near the outpost, and they threw us something in it, and it was two Vietnamese. They threw a satchel charge in it and killed all the Marines in it. There was 4 or 5 Marines in it. And that was about 100 yards from me. So those two things really woke me up that, okay, they're playing for real, you know?
So what changed for you then as far as after those two incidents? Was it more so, okay, I need to become more vigilant. I need to be like, what changed in you after those two incidents?
It made me more serious about what I was doing and the patrols I was leading. And I mean, I had people's lives in my hands. So this was some serious stuff. Now, some people thought I was too serious. I didn't care.
How old are you at this point, Dennis?
19.
Oh my. And I always laugh at this because when you think of a 18 and 19-year-old in your neighborhood, prior to you going to Vietnam, and you think about you as an 18, 19-year-old in Vietnam, the comparison between the two is just you got an 18-year-old, 19-year-old back home on the block doing whatever he's doing, chasing skirts and going out and party. And now you have you, an 18 and 19-year-old, and you're responsible for 8 dudes and you're leading combat patrols in Vietnam. It's like two different, two drastic, end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It
And I
always
think of
blows
that
my mind.
I think of that when I would go home. I usually, back then I wore my uniform whenever I went home.
Hmm.
And I'd see the same dudes holding up the mailbox on the corner as when I left. And just interesting comparison. When you
Absolutely.
have people's lives in your hand, it's pretty important stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now that's when you realize it was real. Another thing that I know a lot of us struggle with from the GWAT era was losing life. Is that you had to deal with, and when did that really hit you? That oh man, I just you either lost somebody that you really knew or lost folks from your squad. How did that go down, and how did you process it? Because I know for me at war, it happened 2 seconds ago, and then 3 seconds later, it's in a box somewhere, and I'm compartmentalizing, and I'm, out doing what I need to do again.
I, I only lost one person in my squad. And I went back to the States on a medical leave. I wasn't gone long. And this person was a weak link in the squad. But when I was there, I thought, I can pull him along and we're going to make it work. And when I left, he did something really foolish and got himself killed.
Yeah.
And I always thought if I hadn't have gone back to the States, that 18-year-old might still be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that we always grapple with because, I became real religious once I started, deploying. And what I chalked it up to, whenever it's that person's time to go, there's really nothing I could have done that would have made a difference. And case in
Yeah.
point, I remember coming back from deployments and we experienced some of the most craziest stuff out there, like IEDs and, firefights. And by the will of God, we make it through those. And then a guy gets home and he's sitting at a light. And then next thing you know, some drunk dude hits him and he's gone.
And I thought of that all the time after I was home, seeing people, friends and comrades killed on a motorcycle or
Yeah.
silly things after all they went through.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really helped me, get a peace of mind and just knowing that, what, that dude, it was just his time to go. It just happened that he went while we were downrange, on deployment. And then the guys that made it back and they were sitting at a light and they got hurt or they got killed, then it was their time to go. And I don't dictate that, that's God's job. So that's really helped me put things in perspective, and hopefully it helps somebody else out there that's currently watching this, also, because at the end of the day, like, that's how that typically goes down. Um,
The other thing I think of, Jay, is I visit my parents' graves back home, and 50 feet away from them is a classmate who was killed in Vietnam. And I always look at that grave. His name was Russell. We went all through school together. And I think I've had 60 more years than he had.
Mhm.
And I'm not anybody special. It just lucked out that way.
Yeah. How long was your deployment to Vietnam?
I was gone a year, a little less than a year, and part of that was in Okinawa, the rest was in Vietnam. And then I came back to Quantico, Virginia. And
Gotcha. Now, once you made it back to the States, a lot of guys nowadays, at least from the GWAT era, my generation, there's a lot of PTSD, a lot of guilt, a lot of depression. Is that something that your generation had to deal with, and how did you handle that aspect of things?
in 68, when I came back, I don't even think anybody had ever heard the word PTSD. Most of the most of the Marines were coming or going from Vietnam. So I was in a transit battalion helping them out. Most of the guys I was working with were shot up. So there was not much talk of PTSD. It was wounds. There was a lot of wounds.
Hmm.
And PTSD didn't really, Jay, it really hasn't. Now, I'm 50% disabled from PTSD, but it didn't really come up till years later. It was there in them, I'm sure, but it wasn't even diagnosed till many years later because we're in the '60s.
What form did it take for you? Because I know it shows up in a lot of different ways. For me,
Right.
it was anger, road rage, and a couple of, for me, it was paranoia. When there's, stuff on the side of the road, because I was my first 5 years, I did route clearance in Iraq, looking in, as a combat engineer, looking and defeating IEDs. So for me, it would be when I see a box on the road, I would switch lane, not even thinking about it, because it's like, oh, that's what they used to use downrange as mile markers so they can blow up whatever truck was coming. So I found myself doing a lot of that. I would check, my car, making sure it's not booby trapped. There was a lot of that stuff going on, and it's parked in my driveway. So I'm like, why am I doing that in the States? So what form did that take for you, and
It
how did you
took,
fix it?
my wife noticed it more than anything else. It was, what's the word I want to use? An awareness. We would go into a mall. I would want to know where the exits were. I wouldn't want to be around a lot of people. Um, and we could never stay in a mall. This is right after I got back. We couldn't stay in a mall very long. It just closed in on me. And I never realized what it was. But I was always looking. Even today I have a touch of that. If I go we go to a small church and there's very few exits out of it. And if you wanted to make trouble, it would be very easy to do. And I'm always looking to say, okay, what happens if this occurs? I'm always making a plan. And I
Yeah,
mean, this is many years after.
yeah. So I don't think that ever goes away. I'm gonna share something with you. I don't think that ever goes away. I think
Probably
that's
not.
just part of the people or the persons we've become as protectors. Because like when I go to restaurants, I always have to sit facing the
Same here.
entrance.
Same here.
I can't have my back to it. If my back is to it, I'm gonna have a horrible time. And every time it opens, I'm turning around and I'm looking.
Same
Right?
here.
When I'm driving, it's always defensive driving. If something happens here, how do I get out of this lane? And it's something, especially when you have kids and you have loved ones, you're always in that because we've seen the worst of human beings. We've seen the worst that man has to offer, and it's something that's never gonna go away. As messed up as that is, so I've just learned, and my folks have just learned to deal with it when we go to restaurants. My father-in-law, who's also a Marine, he gets to choose where he wants to sit first, and then I get to choose where I want to sit first. And oftentimes we're both facing the entrance, and I think that's how majority of your vets are, right? So that's normal. I'll let you know. That's our norm, at least,
Yeah.
right? So that's one form that it took for you. Anything else? And did you try to get help to try to fix that, or how did that come? Like, how did you work that out?
I didn't until long after I was out of the service did I try to I went to see a VA therapist, but that was 30 years later. Because things started manifesting itself after I retired. My road rage and anger, and I was willing to fight at the drop of a hat, came, 10, 15 years ago. So it's long after Vietnam. I don't know if it's after I retired, but my second tour was a little more difficult. And I think that's what added to it.
Now, how long did you spend in the Marine Corps?
7 years, just a little
7 years.
shy of seven, yes.
7 years. Okay, so you did your first tour, went back to Quantico, and then the second time around, like what led to that deployment? And now you've already been once, and you knew what to expect. Like, was the mindset any different, or was it all right? Here we go again, more of the same, and then
No, it was absolutely different. I'm married. We have a 2-year-old. Um, I went to Quantico and applied for the officer candidate program. And because I had less than high school, I didn't test very high. But they wanted me to apply for a commission. So we tried that. I got decorated at Quantico. I stopped a gun battle, and my commander thought it was pretty laudable. So the Army probably has a soldier's medal or something. The Marine Corps has a Navy Marine Corps medal. It's right above the Bronze Star. So they awarded that to me. So Quantico was, I made Sergeant E5. So I'm doing pretty good, and I decided to reenlist. I had 3.5 years in it. I could reenlist. I had a 4-year enlistment. I could reenlist 6 months early. So I reenlisted, hoping to get commissioned, just got decorated by a 3-star.
now when you said you stop a gun battle, was it like somebody infiltrated, or some knucklehead Marines were about to kill each other?
Some knucklehead Marine in our apartment complex. It was our downstairs neighbor. He had a fight with his wife, came back with a rifle,
Oh
and
my
right
God.
behind him were 3 state trooper cars and some MPs. He got out of his car and his wife was sitting with me, and started to level up on her. And I just walked towards them, and I said, Roy, I think this is a bad idea. and he says, it is. And then he pointed the gun at me, and I said, oh, shit. And about that time, the police moved. They all had their guns out. They were on the ground. And when they moved, they attracted his attention, and I was able to disarm them.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. Yeah, it takes a lot of two things.
I never realized what I was doing at the time.
No. Two things. It takes a lot of balls to do that. So kudos to you for that. And then number two is glad to hear that nothing's changed. It was like that back then too, right? Guys were still doing dumb shit. So nothing's really changed, right?
I'll never forget saying to him, I said, Roy, this is a bad idea. He said, I don't care. I'm going to shoot her. I'm going to shoot you. And I said, oh boy. But it ended up okay. And so I reenlisted. The commission didn't come through, and I understand why. I didn't score high on this college test they gave me, but they really had regarded me highly. But wouldn't you know, because I reenlisted, I got a new set of orders to Westpac, to Vietnam.
Oh Lord.
This time I didn't want to go. And of course, you don't have that option.
No.
I had a wife, a little one, and I knew what it was about. I didn't want to go. So I went over there, went into a new billet. I went with the Marine Airway, which is a pretty soft job. And I was in the rear with the gear with I work for Assistant Chief of Staff, so it was a cake job. Now the guys I went over with, a lot of them were grunts, so they were out there in the tulips. After about 6 months, I couldn't stand it anymore, so I volunteered to be a gunner on a helicopter. And because I worked for a colonel, I think that helped. So I had a quick physical and started working started as a gunner on a Marine medium helicopter. And I think that's where all my bad thoughts come in.
Yeah. Now, was it like a battlefield circulation type helicopter where the colonel would go around and make his rounds, or were you actually providing support for like the grunts and the ground pounders?
Yep. We went out, the colonel stayed back in the rear, but they just sent me out as an individual to a place called Marble Mountain. It was the Marines helicopter spot. And there every morning you'd wake up at 4:30 and go down and see which bird you were assigned to and what mission they were going on. So a number of our early missions were recon drops. So we take out 7 recon guys in the middle of nowhere and drop them off. Or another time we'd be picking up wounded Vietnamese villages that Marine artillery had shot to pieces. Or a lot of times we'd be picking up wounded Marines, and I'd be helping the corpsmen trying to stop bleeding.
Mm, mm.
Um,
So there's a lot
some of
of
my
not,
best moments and some of my worst moments.
yeah. So not necessarily like fit like you're physically engaging the enemy, but you saw all the results of the engagements
That's
work. Yeah, and that's yeah, like that's why I always like the 68 whiskeys or the medics that we dealt with in throughout GWAT, the stuff that those guys see, even though they weren't out there shooting and getting shot at, but can you imagine 18, 19-year-old kid or you're probably in your 20s at that point, just seeing limbs and missing
yep.
it really stays with you.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you volunteered for this particular position. How long did it last, and how did that change you?
Well, I volunteered for it, and he told me I could come back whenever, if I wanted to. And I can still remember um, I wanted to experience it. I wanted to do something. I hated being in the back, in the rear. So I kept volunteering for night medevacs, and because they were the most unusual type of things. And I had 2 or 3 of those, and especially the last one. And I think I was less than a month, and I said, I'm going to get killed. Most of the gunners all had hearts, and they would tease me. Preaching, you're going to get a heart pretty soon. No problem, man. We all got them. I've got 2. And I kept saying, I could take a scratch, but you're never guaranteed what you're going to get.
Hmm.
And but the last night medevac was so horrific. I was so scared. I remember saying, I'm going to go back. I got a wife and kid. I'm going to go back, especially if I have a choice.
Yeah. What made that one so bad, if you don't mind sharing? And if you don't, you don't have to.
We went out to Hill 55. They were under fire, and they called us and said they had some emergency medevacs. First, they said they had 2 permanent routines, which are 2 dead Marines, and we don't have to go get them under fire if they're dead. But then they said, now we've got some emergency ones, and we got some priority ones. And they said, stay on your guns, because they're in the wire, they're everywhere, meaning VC. So I'm scared to death. We get in there, and I'm worried about them running up the back of the helicopter. We have that drop-down tail. So
Hmm.
I've got an M16 also to cover that. And they start bringing the guys on. And we must have put on 10, we call them packs. We must have put on 10 people, 10 packs.
Hmm.
And they threw a couple of dead people on the tailgate. And we took off. And there's a trench in the middle of this helicopter. It's not a Chinook. Chinook is too big. It's a C-9, which is a Navy helicopter, but it looks similar. Double rotors, double M50 machine guns on each window. Anyways, the corpsman was at the head of the ship, trying to treat people, and he had a guy with a bad head wound, and he asked me to hold his skull while he did a tracheotomy on him.
Mm.
And it was just mush. There was just nothing there. And then after that, And you're doing this without feeling bad for yourself. You're just doing what needs to be done. You got to get it done. And then I'm in the back. One guy had his foot missing, or he was walking on a bone. His foot was on the side. And I was sticking, and I couldn't figure out why I was sticking, but it was so full of blood. That trench in the middle, they would run supply wenches off of there. It was about 2 inches deep, but it had maybe a half-inch blood. But I was sticking in it everywhere I went because it was all over. And then we get down. Then I went to the back of the helicopter and looked at the 2 dead Marines, and they had ponchos on them, but one poncho blew off, and it was a Hispanic Marine, and he had a hole right through the center of his forehead, and I thought, geez, oh man! At the time I didn't. So anyways, we land and we get the emergencies off at Denay, and they asked me to offload the dead Marines. They bring up like a dolly up, and I help a corpsman lift the one guy off, the Hispanic Marine, and the other guy, it doesn't look like he's got a head. It looks like he got hit in the chest with an RPG. So I wouldn't touch him. I just went like this. And they were pissed at me. They got another corpsman out of the hospital. And when they picked him up, we picked him up by his feet and shoulders. His shoulders just went together. So I'm glad I didn't pick I just couldn't do it. No. And after that, I got back. We were in these god-awful huts, dirt level with the ground, the air crews. I got back, and the next day, I said, I think this is it for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
like nothing about what you and I just, what I just heard you say is normal. Like, absolutely nothing. And research has shown, because I've been looking at this, I've been looking into this, that especially the male brain, like we're so stupid. Like it takes, our brain doesn't really start like cementing itself in until the age of 25. Leading up to that point, like it's so elastic and mushy, like it can, I guess, change its physiology at any given time. And when you're that young and you're experiencing that type of trauma and your brain is not fully developed, yes, then that type of shit can destroy you, So I can only imagine as a young Marine, like what you're thinking about at this point, like life, you don't see life the same after you're handling, like the human body and seeing what bullets and RPGs can do to it. Like, I don't care who you are, you're going to change, so.
And I had it easy, Jay.
Yeah.
I had it easy. I've got friends that were grunts 24/7, 365 days, never came out of the bushes. So I had it easy.
Yeah. That's wild. So now you go through that medevac, you get back, you had enough. What happens next?
I get back, I have about 4 or 5 months to serve in Vietnam. I get promoted to Staff Sergeant E6, which in the Marine Corps is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is in the Army. Maybe it's E7.
But E7 is a big deal in the Army. Yeah.
In the Navy, it's Chief.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Marines, it's the rocker. It's E7. So I get promoted. It goes pretty easy after that. And I come home. I apply for an early out for college. So I come home in April of '71, and I go to a Marine barracks for about 5 months. And then I'm out. In September, I start college.
What brought up the decision to ETS for you? Like, what was the determining factor? Was it that deployment, or were you just ready, or was it politics? Were you just ready to do something else?
I didn't want to go back a third time, and I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And I didn't think my marriage could stand it. And I'm not sure I could stand it.
Yeah.
That was they were rotating us pretty quick, back and forth. And you're well aware what that's like.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it a third time. 12 months
Yeah.
is a long time to be without your wife.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. That's yeah, it's one of those things like if even if you have the best marriage in the world, like it's going to take a hit.
It's a lot of
That's just
stress.
oh yeah,
A lot of stress.
tons of stress. So now leading up to that point, how are you feeling about your service? Are you still proud, patriotic? Are you upset at Vietnam? Are you upset at the politicians? Are
I
you
think I'm proud of my service. I'm
hmm
proud that I got promoted so quickly. I think I made E6 in, we don't call it E6, we call it Staff Sergeant. I think I made Staff Sergeant in 4.5, 5 years, which in the
that
Marine Corps is about
that's
half.
unheard of.
It's about half the time. I was proud of that. Even though that serving as a gunner was it made me distraught, I was proud that I survived it. I think in just a month I had 100 missions. Um, so but I was tired of it.
hmm
I didn't want to rotate again. I didn't want to go again, and I don't know if my marriage could have stood it.
Yeah.
And um, I had always wanted to go to college, so I thought it was time.
Yeah. Hats off to you for making that decision because I know that's one that a lot of guys don't make because they don't have the situational awareness to realize that hey, the family can't take too much of this, right? Like you got
Yeah,
to cut sling load whenever you need to. So now, when you got done with the Marine Corps in service, did you have to deal with what the country was doing to you guys at that time? And how did you feel about that? Because you were there and you know good men and women that pass, and you know what the fight was like to come home and to hear all the rhetoric. How'd you feel about that aspect of things?
I came home to college. It was a hometown college. It was a
Hmm
small school. A certain number of protests are going on, um, and I really just ignored them. I didn't agree with them. I didn't agree with the protesters. Um, I I went to college during the day, and I had an 8-hour job at night, and I had a wife and a child. So I really didn't have any time for the Mickey Mouse stuff if I
hmm
wanted to get my 4 years in. So I was pretty busy those 4 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now you're out. You got college. What happened next? How did the books and everything else come to be uh, for you?
I struggled with the books. Um, I think part of it was I was working full time nights too, but I was always worried after being out of school 7 years, could I make it? Could I cut it? Could I get it done? And then the longer I went to school, the more thought sometimes it just, I work hard. I may not be the brightest pencil in the box, but I work hard. And if you work hard enough, you can get through anything.
Oh, absolutely.
And I got through college. Had a B average. Like I said, but I struggled with that. But
Yeah.
it was okay. It was a good time for us. We knew I wasn't getting transferred anywhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm not a college person myself. I'm more online. I have unlimited time to figure it out, and eventually I'll get it done, right? So
Yes.
now, so as you're going through all of this, is Vietnam still in the back of your head? Is that what led to you writing those books, or were you thinking about like how did the idea to start writing? I think your first one was talking about the Vietnam vets that were from the area where you grew up. How did
Correct.
that idea come about for you?
Now, it's strange because after I went to college, I had a 35-year career in human resources.
Hmm
So I didn't start writing until I want to say 72. And I had never been to a class reunion because I left in the middle of my senior year. I didn't feel like I would be wanted. But I went and I found something triggered me. A number of us in 1965, you either were drafted, you volunteered, or you went in the National Guard. And in our small class, almost great percentage of the guys had some military connection. And my wife had been encouraging me because I didn't know what to do after retirement to write about some of my stories I had always told our kids. So between her encouragement and then meeting the veterans, I picked out of all the guys that served, I picked out 10 that I thought had interesting stories. And I went to their homes and I went across the country. I interviewed them where they were. Now, one was killed in action. All of us are disabled. One was paralyzed. The rest had gunshot wounds. Some were hurt parachuting. Some had PTSD. So they had interesting stories. So I spent the next probably a year getting their stories down. And because of the job in human resources, most of my time there had been spent interviewing people from CEOs to laborers. So I was used to handling interviews, getting the information I want, having some sort of structure.
Hmm.
But the other thing is you had to get people to trust you.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget the first guy I talked to. He was the toughest guy in the class. Anytime you wanted to challenge him, you'd have to get by the nuns. You'd go to the basement. They'd set up lookouts, and you could go in there and have a fist fight with him to see if you could beat him. I couldn't. I didn't. But he was a hard ass. Well, he was a Marine, and a sniper hit him. I don't think he'd been in country 3 months on patrol and destroyed his right arm.
Mm.
And he wouldn't let them take it off. And he fought them. So I said to myself, if I can convince this guy to be in the book, I can convince anybody. So I
Absolutely.
went to his house. We had a cigar in his back patio. And he said he'd be in the book. He showed me his arm. It's still, 40 years later, it hangs by his side. It's destroyed. Um, and that sort of started it. Joe's story, and I had another story. So I ended up getting 3 Marines, seven Army folks, and a sailor. And
That's
then
awesome.
my publisher said, "Did you have a protester?" And I found a protester in the class too. So,
Oh,
and they were all classmates. We all knew
ain't
each
that
other.
that's crazy. Protester, Marine, sailor, Army got all in the same from the same high school or from that town, from that high school,
And
and
from the
then
same class.
from the same class. Wow, that's wild. So that's the first book. What's the name of that book, and where can people from the audience go pick it up if they wanted to read it?
Then all my books are available on Amazon. That first book was The Boys of St. Joe, 65 in the Vietnam War.
Okay,
And it's about 11 of us who served in Vietnam.
gotcha. So now the process of writing that book, was it therapeutic for you to an extent, or was it didn't do anything for you as far as some of the stuff that you witnessed in Vietnam?
It
Like,
was therapeutic for me, and I've had a number of wives of the people I wrote about said it was therapeutic for their husbands.
now what do you
So,
think that was?
they hadn't told some of these stories to anybody. And I was a vet, 50 years had passed, and it was time that some could come out. Now, some of this stuff, I didn't. One thing I do as an author, if I'm going to write about you, before I publish it, I'm going to let you read it. Authors typically don't like censorship. So I
Oh
wrote
yeah,
that book, The Boys of St. Joe, 65 in the Vietnam War, and I luckily found a publisher quickly and went on to. Then I wrote a book about Born in the Berkshires, just about formative people that from across the. I write about 3 little towns in the northwestern corner of Massachusetts. So I wrote about interesting people from those 3 towns. One was a governor. One became a governor of the state. Um, one was the state attorney general.
so I find it interesting, like you mentioned earlier, that sharing the stories was therapeutic, and what I'm realizing about the Vietnam era vets is there's a lot of people, because just think about it, like how many people have heard your stories? Probably your family members and some of the guys you serve with. But some of these stories, you can't even tell your family members. You know what I mean? So just think about, all the time you spent down there and all that stuff is bottled in. And then you don't have an outlet because the guy at the diner that you went to high school with that didn't deploy or that didn't serve, he won't understand.
He has no idea.
No idea. So
And
you
matter
sit
of
there.
fact, if you told him some of it, he would think you were a miserable human being too.
Exactly. So that's why, like, I like doing these sit downs because I'm trying to encourage at least my generation of vets to understand that it's okay to share some of these stories with other vets on platforms like this, because for me, it's therapeutic to be able to talk about it.
Absolutely.
To be able to hey, I did X, Y, and Z, and this is how it made me feel. And because just the other day we had a sergeant major take his own life. This guy served at the highest level, and Saturday, he's in his house, and the next thing you know, cops are over there, and he's gone. And I'm like, man, this guy served and did the hardest thing as far as deploying the war and fighting, and this is how he went out. Not on the battlefield, but in the comfort of his own home with his own pistol. And it's like, man, we need to unpack some of this stuff and try to get to the bottom of why it keeps happening. And sometimes it's because guys don't keep it all bottled in, and the next thing you know, it explodes. So now your third book, I think, was it the one? Which book speaks about the guys from that area that passed away in Vietnam? And I think you were. Is that the one? I think it's the Boys of. There's another book that you and I had discussed about the classmates that passed away. Which one was that one?
My third book was Berkshire Patriot Stories of Sacrifice. And in that book, I have stories that from 28 different people that go across 300 years of history, from the French and Indian War to Afghanistan. And I have two men in that book from my area that were killed in Afghanistan. One was a Green Beret.
That's what you and I were talking about.
Yes.
That's okay. That's what I remember about. Okay, yeah.
He was one of the first berets in Afghanistan.
Okay, so he was probably with the 5th Special Forces Group, because those guys were on horsebacks going into Afghanistan doing that conflict.
With Hamid Karzai.
Okay, yep.
Before he was president.
Oh, okay, yep.
And he got a wonderful story, but in the end, the B-52 got him.
Oh, so that's the ODA team. I think it's 5-9 something. They dropped the bomb on his actual team. I remember that story.
I think they lost 4 berets. I mean, it was tragic.
Yeah. Because I remember being a student and then bringing that team in, and they were all receiving their Valorous Awards. I remember that team's that incident specifically.
I think I read somewhere when they B-52 drops 2,000-pound bound, you've got to be 1,000 yards away from. You've got to be a good certain distance.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he was 200 yards.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So tragic story.
I went and interviewed his parents, and it almost brought back horrible memories, because they were wonderful people. He had been dead 10 years. He was the life of their life, and everybody's crying. They asked his brother to come over, who was so close to they were only 2 boys. And then we went to the cemetery. I still remember that, and that was a real touching moment for me. Yeah. And this guy was, huge. And he was Disco Dan. When he was in Kazakhstan, he was over there deployed, training, I guess, troops. But when he had time off, he'd go in town and play records or whatever in the local bar, and the people loved him. And he'd wear a Russian fur cap. So he was already 6-something. Yeah. He put that on against everybody else, looks like a midget, and they kept yelling for Disco Dan.
Yeah,
and it's people like that, and you lose them, and it's What a loss for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. That's just excruciating. And again, folks, all these books you can find on Amazon. I'll make sure I'll link them to the in the description box, so you guys can go check them out. So is that all you're doing now, Dennis? Is just writing books and then trying to shed light on folks that serve, and also try to do your part in making sure like the next generation knows that it's okay to serve.
Yeah, I consider preserving stories, preserving legacies. I just finished one on World War II heroes with courage and honor. And this, the more I live in this bubble sometimes, Jay, all these people, the selflessness, the self sacrifice, um, and the World War II book has sold really well.
Good.
Because I think a lot of people my age had their dads or moms or uncles in the war.
Oh yeah,
So
I
that's
agree
what I'm doing
100%.
now, preserving stories.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Dennis, if anybody wants to get a hold of you to, whether it's old Marine vet that served with you or anybody else, or you on social media at all, Instagram,
Yes,
YouTube.
DennisPregent.com.
Okay,
You can
DennisPregent.com.
get to me through there. That's got all my books, and they can send me a message through there, and I get back right away.
Okay, and I will link that in the description box also for you guys. Dennis, before we punch out of here, again, two separate generation. Yours, Vietnam. Mine is the GWAT era. How do you feel about the state of the country right now as it relates to geopolitics and the war in Iran, Israel, the Middle East? Like, what are your thoughts
Hey,
on all
that's a
that
big
craziness?
question for me. I, you know, I don't want to get political. I
Hmm.
don't have much confidence in the administration. I have no respect for the Secretary of Defense.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't like what they're doing to the military. I agree with some things. I believe we should be a lethal force. I'm not confused there. We're not here to pick flowers. I understand that. I just want to respect the people that lead me,
Yeah,
and
I
I,
agree.
I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, because my thing, and again, having been there, and I'm looking at lay of the land, right, from the United States as a whole. I'm like, man, World War II, World War III, World War One, World War Two, awesome. Korea stuff started changing, and then Vietnam, and then Afghanistan, Iraq, and it's like, man, we're a lethal force, but we're not finishing anything that we've started. And for
That's
that,
true.
I struggle because for me, it started in Vietnam where you guys were crushing it, and then Tet Offensive happened, and then it's done.
Yep.
American people couldn't stomach it. Iraq, Afghanistan, 20 years, we just handed back over. So as a soldier, different generation, it's hard to accept that, because you learn in basic training and in AIT and while serving that, hey, we are the United States, mighty military. We take it to the enemy. We finish what we start. And then politics gets involved, and it's like, okay, we're leaving now. And it's like, I just lost a bunch of buddies.
Yep.
And does that not mean anything?
I
But
compared that retreat from Afghanistan, that plane. You remember seeing the planes fly out of Afghanistan? I thought there was an apt comparison between when Saigon fell and they were evacuating people off the roofs and when Afghanistan fell. And I remember when Saigon fell, I was watching it on TV. I was in college. I was so crushed at all the loss and all the sacrifice and all the blood for nothing.
yep, yep. There's
I'm
this.
not embarrassed I was there. I'm proud I was a Marine. I'm proud I served my country. I'm proud I answered the call. I just felt I wish we had won. And Afghanistan, that was a mortal embarrassment the way we got out of there. We left behind friends. I, it's just not a good look, Jay.
My generation would say that Vietnam is or Afghanistan is our version of Vietnam.
Yes.
And they're 100% correct. And to see, the Taliban they're the government right now, right? And they're running that country, and we're like, man, 20 years, what was that for?
I know.
And it was like, man,
I
it's
mean,
all, yeah.
and it's all the deployments and all the relationships
Hmm.
and all the wounded that still there's so much suffering still going on from it.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
And I'm sure it was the same with the Vietnam guys doing your era. It was like it fell because the country or the population couldn't handle it, and now you have all the vets, and they
Mhm.
treated you guys a lot. Well, they treated you guys horribly, and then you're there and you're looking at it, and I would say Vietnam was, yeah, we had the IEDs and all of that stuff, so it was brutal for us. But man, Vietnam was, looking at it and studying it, I'm like, man, Vietnam was brutal. Like the Viet Congs, they were formidable, and
They were.
I can only imagine what those Marines and Army and all the folks that fought there had to deal with. But yeah, it sucks, and the only thing we can do now is just heal, just like your generation had to heal themselves. So
It
uh,
makes it a tough environment to talk up the military after what the military's been through. You
absolutely,
know, people want to be part of a winning program, and Afghanistan hurt us, Vietnam hurt us, but
absolutely,
well,
absolutely,
thank you. I
but
got the link you sent for the shirt, so I'll order that.
absolutely, absolutely. But before we punch out of here, Dennis, any last words? Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to say?
The only thing I thought of as you were talking, I've talked to people across the spectrum, military people, from World War II to today, and I've researched Civil War people. And, the American fighting man and woman, most of them are very noble. I mean, they're not in it for themselves. They're not in it to conquer other countries. They're in it to serve their countries. More importantly, to support the men and women or the guys on each side of them. So I think as American, our fighting men are noble.
Absolutely,
They
absolutely.
do it for the right thing and the right reason. That they're misled, that's another issue sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I had to remember, especially as I get deeper and deeper into this coach, teach, and mentor aspect of thing, where I'm talking to young men and women that are interested in joining. I make them understand, like, hey, separate from the political space, you're joining the military, for a separate reason. The people that lead you, you can't control that. You don't control who the president is. You don't control who the lobbyists are that are paying for their campaigns and all of that stuff. But
But
when
but
you
if you
join the
want to be
yeah,
proud of something and you want to accomplish something, the military is a great way to do it.
I agree 100%. It's a great foundation too. I know it's done a lot
It
for me.
is,
It's done way more than any other organization in the United States have done for me. So
for
for that,
sure.
I'm proud and will always be proud. But well, I appreciate you coming on, Dennis, and speaking
Hey,
with me today.
okay, Jay.
I
Thanks a
appreciate it.
lot for talking.
Absolutely. Folks, let us know what you guys think about Dennis's episode. Make sure you go to Amazon and check out those books. I will put the link in the description box below, guys. Until next time, take care of yourself. Thank you for taking the time to watch the Dark Arts Coffee podcast. Again, grab you a bag at darkartscoffeeco.com. All right, let me know what you think about the coffee. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. If you enjoy it, so like, subscribe, share. The intent is to reach out to veterans' mental state, share the stories from those that's been there, that's done it, and see how we are thriving to hopefully negate you as a veteran from unaliving yourself. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next segment.